All right, done with round one. We've had 5 teams pick up points and 5 teams who do not want to become the first to lose 2 in the season as cricket returns to the Chepauk. I say that with a smile, just like we saw IPL colours at the Chinnaswamy last night. The M.A. Chidambaram Stadium has its own place in IPL history. 2 finals, and it's been just about 3 years that CSK last played there in a qualifier that saw them win on their way to what was yet another final. Only 4 survivors from that day, but Chennai would be glad to have IPL cricket back. This is ESPN Cricket for T20 Timeout. Deep Dasgupta and Tom Moody had such a fine outing yesterday. I've retained them both. No need for any impact substitutes today. But it's such a nice feeling getting cricket back at the Chepauk, where we know it's one of it's got its own charm in the IPL. Perhaps a fan following that like no other.
Yeah. Absolutely so. I mean, I guess a couple of years ago, before CSK was traveling to the UAE, so they had a practice session for a couple of days. Yeah. The stadium was packed for a practice session. That's how crazy and the fan following is there.
Yeah, I love that. MS also brings up the point that I think you said that they've sorted some issues out with the stands. So finally we'll get a full house. It's only MS can say it. Anyone else has it, and they're in trouble.
Big trouble, yeah. Oh, look, that is going to be wonderful to see a full stadium, and you can guarantee it'll be all yellow. Every part of it will be yellow.
By the way, the seats are also yellow.
And I reckon if we listen carefully, we might be able to hear it from here.
Yeah, good chance. I can still hear some of those loyal Chennai fans from my bizarre 2018 prediction, but we are not here to dwell on the past. We are looking ahead, and it's a different CSK when they are at home. Lucknow would know that. The record that the Super Kings enjoy at the Chepauk is second to none. We spoke of Hyderabad's impressive record. That's taken a slight beating after yesterday. But as far as CSK go, a win percentage of 71. They've also played a lot of playoff games there that they've won. They played 2 finals there that they've won, but 71%. I guess the question is whether this CSK side, with not as many players that have had the feeling of playing historically at the Chidambaram Stadium, Deep, can they actually feel like they start with an advantage at Chepauk?
I think the feeling would be still there. I'm sure they've had a longish prep camp and stuff like that. So I'm sure the feeling would be there. But then it's a different side. It's not the same CSK side that we see those numbers they've got. So yeah, I mean, it's not going to be that easy.
If you have to inject that sense of we start here with an advantage to a bunch of players who have not played, is there a way to do it? Could you give your best speech that you possibly can?
You want it right now, do you? Oh, look, I think it's more about not looking at the past for this generation that's playing now, because as we all know, there hasn't been, these games being played at home for a number of years for various reasons. I think it's about them creating a new future. You respect the past and admire the past, learn from the past, but it's more about, how are we going to create our own footprint into the future? And this is what our strengths are, and let's focus on that. And I think MS will probably articulate it better than I could ever do. But that's the message I'd be giving: is that let's forget about the past. Let's create our own future.
All right. Now, Lucknow have won the toss at the Chepauk. You want to try and get any advantage as you go there. This is a new franchise, but even with its recency, we are now able to tell trends and patterns. One thing about KL Rahul's side is that they defend well. So they have chosen to field, and Rahul has said at the toss, he just wants to know what he's chasing. But if you just look at Lucknow Super Giants batting first and second, it's quite a difference. Won 8 out of 9 batting first, lost 5 out of 7 batting second. Can't help but think KL Rahul is a big reason or a big factor in those numbers.
Yeah, but then listen, T20 evening game, Chepauk, Dew will be a massive factor there. As good as those numbers are, you still would want to chase.
Some tosses can be good to lose, perhaps. Yeah.
Look, I think if Dew is going to be present, it's a no-brainer that you want to be bowling first and giving your bowlers every chance to not be affected with a ball that's got a wet seam, particularly for the spinners if it is going to grip a little bit. So I wouldn't even be considering that record. If it's a day game, different story.
Yeah. All right, fair enough. So advantage Lucknow, one would think, with the toss result, assuming Dew will come in. Yes.
Just on that though, you say advantage, but we now have this impact sub.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that then just sort of levels
Negates,
the playing field
yeah.
just a little bit.
True.
It's not as, and I think that's one of the reasons it's come into play.
Absolutely.
So it's, there is a slight, ability to not sort of have such a disadvantage by losing the toss.
Yeah, I mean, at the opening weekend, we have seen 3 teams out of 5 win batting first. Yes, there were some day games in that as well. So keep an eye out on whether winning the toss is still as much of an advantage. Let's go to the Chennai 11 first up. We'll build those impact subs as soon as we hear from them. But I was curious to see if there's a change in the overseas combination. Before we went on air, both Tom and Deep were keen on having Dwayne Pretorius looking at their death bowling woes, CSK in the last game at Ahmedabad. But there are no changes there at all, which is, well, among other things, quintessentially CSK. They don't make any changes.
Yeah, that is so CSK, isn't it? Obviously, I mean, we were talking about Pretorius, but yeah, I mean, generally, if Santner played the last game, chances are here in Chepauk, you will definitely go with an extra spinner. Generally, it's been a pitch which assists the spinners a lot more. It's on the slower side. So if Santner played the last game, you've got to make him play here as well. And CSK being CSK, I mean, they don't really make changes to that.
If at all you want to play Santner, you play him at the Chepauk. So maybe the thing was play Pretorius away and maybe Santner at home. But would you still have liked to see them change things, even though that's not what a lot of teams do after one game?
Yeah, I would have gone with the change, but I sense there might be an injury issue with Pretorius. And I'm only guessing that that's the case. Because now that you've got the flexibility, I'd be looking at sort of using that flexibility. And I believe CSK have got a couple of good young spinners in their squad. A young left armer, Solanke, that could come into play. But to me, the big gap in this CSK 11 or their squad is their death skills.
Maybe I could just cut you there and tell you that I believe Pretorius has been named on the impact subs.
So maybe
fit enough to field.
So
let's put it that way, because he can't be introduced. They've named 4.
Yep.
Oh yeah,
they've named 4. So unless they would have gone with an Indian spin option, in which they do have, we were discussing that, Deep. They've picked up Nishant Sindhu from the under-19 team who can play that role.
Exactly, and he's more than a decent bat as well.
Yeah.
So what Tom is talking about, you can easily could have made that switch, get Pretorius, and also have a left arm spinner, maybe not Santner, but someone like Sindhu could.
You don't really need Santner the batter, because we saw that in the last game. If MS is going to bat as late as 7 or 8, and you still had Deepak Chahar and Hangargekar, who are both capable batters. Yeah. So I don't think you quite need Santner the batter. Would that have tempted you even more? Yeah.
No. Look, again, I think it's more the template that CSK have had, and you could hardly argue. the template's worked, certainly with their record at home and with the trophies they've got in the cabinet.
As Stephen Fleming reminded you of, very impolitely.
Always does.
On the opening day of the World Cup.
Yes, that's
and you rightly told him that World Cups are at a different level. That's awesome. One day we'll have Stephen Fleming here. I don't think he'll be happy about that if he's here during an IPL. But anyway, we'll confirm those impact subs in a moment. Lucknow have made one change. And if you follow your matchups in the IPL and you have good memory of MS Dhoni's attacking, aggressive injuries. In fact, there are 2 changes. K. Gautam came in as the impact sub in the last game, but now he's going to be starting. Remember, it could just be a straight swap where Badoni will then become the sub while they're batting second. Last game, Lucknow were batting first. So K. Gautam starts, and it's a first LSG appearance, mind you, a first IPL appearance for the Vidarbha seamer Yash Thakur, who had a very good domestic season. He was one of our key uncapped buys before the auction. It's nice to see him get a game. Jaydev Unadkat misses out. Experienced Jaydev Unadkat, but there is a history against MS Dhoni.
Yeah, there is, but I would love to fly in that dressing room and hear that conversation. What would have KL Rahul told him? Ki, listen, you've got a bad record against MS Dhoni and hence you're not playing
Exactly. That's exactly what he might have told him.
And after one game.
Look, I think KL Rahul would have said to Andy Flower, can you have that conversation, please?
Andy Flower would have then told Gautam Gambhir. Gautam Gambhir would have then gone. So
Andy would have stepped up to the plate for sure.
Good man, yeah. But in all honesty, you have to think of it. They won their first game. Unadkat may have been expensive. It was a one-off game. They won it anyway. What is the possible reason that you have dropped him after one game when you've won? Except for perhaps a matchup, an unfavourable matchup.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is, and I think that most teams are reasonably flexible with those slight adjustments to their team. We've talked about CSK haven't been flexible historically, and that's worked for them. But, just those subtle changes, I don't have an issue with. And we also see now that the whole playing field's changed with this impact player. So you may not be in the 11, but suddenly...
But I also wonder what would a conversation like that or a decision like that do to a player?
I think honesty is got to be the real important thing, and you've just got to be diplomatic the way you message it. But there's no point beating around the bush. You be very honest with whatever the reasons might be, and we're assuming that he's fit and healthy and ready to play. There might be a niggle there or some
there's also
there.
it can go beyond Dhoni as well here, because there are so many left-handers in that CSK team. Yeah. So we have to break down the numbers to see who's a better bowler against left-handers. So there's loads to consider here, but it is something that we've been witnessing over the years. So unfortunately, we won't get to see it tonight. But let's have a look at the full teams now. We've got the squads with the impact subs for you, and let's see if we can read in any more than what we saw. And on the last game, CSK did bat first, like they will be today, and they introduced Tushar Deshpande, and they've got pretty much similar options. Deshpande is the only Indian seamer there. Subhranshu Senapati is a batter. Sheikh Rashid can bowl some spin. So unless they're going all out spin, looks like Deshpande is going to be the likely sub, Deep.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, again, CSK being CSK and not gonna make any changes unless it's forced. So they're going to stick with that, with the same side or same plans.
Yeah. In fairness, Tom, if we go back to that game at Ahmedabad and you look at Tushar Deshpande, I think his figures in the end were 1 for 51 of 3.1. But as you saw his bowling, you said he's not bowled that badly.
Yeah, he didn't bowl badly. I thought his first over was, absolutely spot on. But that happens, and quite often, certainly putting my coach's hat on, the most important thing to judge yourself from a bowling perspective is, one, the clarity of mind at the top of your mark, so you know what delivery you're bowling, you've got that clarity, and the execution of that delivery. If you've ticked both those boxes, you can't control what happens at the other end. A top edge that flies for 4, a nick that goes past the keeper for 4, or a wild swipe across the line that gets out of the middle of the bat and goes for 6 over mid-wicket. You can't control that. But what you can control is your mindset, your clarity of mind, and the execution. And if you do that well enough, you've done your job.
And also with someone like MS, he likes players who can follow what he wants of them. People, I mean, and he's very big on that in terms of, if I want you to bowl an outswinger to a certain batter, you should be doing that. If I want you to bowl this, you should be able to do that. He's pretty big on that. So maybe
Tushar is part of his plans. All right, fair enough. Good to see them get extra games though. It's only the one game. And CSK are a strong side at home, we know that. But we are very excited to see if Mark Wood can follow up what he's been doing. Just before that, let's have a look at the Lucknow team and confirm their overseas options, as well as we've confirmed the team. Let's look at their impact options. Unatkat's there, but now that this is the bowling first 11, he's not going to feature. You think in all likelihood, you'll just have Ayush Badoni. They cannot name Daniel Sams into the 11 after naming 4, and you've got Prerak Mankad and Amit Mishra, so Badoni becomes the straight swap. I guess that's pretty straightforward to predict.
Straightforward.
Tom?
All right, pretty much.
There's no mystery left here. They should do something to at least keep us guessing or the opposition guessing.
I don't think you should have as many impact replacements there.
So many options, you're saying?
Yeah, I don't think so.
That's a different chat, but let's go there. You think we should, the rule should allow only for, say, 2 or 3 names?
2.
Why?
You've got to give me time to think about it. Let's go back to that tomorrow.
Fine. you open the door.
Yeah. Okay.
You're here for a long time. Let's do it later.
But this might get interesting if the pitches become a little unpredictable. Then suddenly you think a pitch would play in a certain way and it doesn't.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Then suddenly you'll be like, what, I was thinking of getting a seamer in the second half, but maybe I might get a batter. Or you're suddenly 30 for, or let's say not 30, 80 for 6. You've got to get a batter in.
So I was bringing last evening's game into example, where they MI named 3 overseas players. They could have put Brevis and Behrendorff on the subs bench. They didn't do that. And because they were 30 for 4 or whatever it was, they could have at least had the option. Forget what will happen in the second innings. But maybe Brevis as a batter could have taken you to 200 if he fires. So then you figure out what to do later, because even 170 eventually was never going to be enough.
So I mean, maybe 4 gives you a little more elbow room, I guess.
Yeah, I suppose what it's giving you is 2 different options with bat and 2 different options with ball, isn't it? So
fair enough.
I retract my statement.
Either that, but you still know what your subs will be depending on the toss result.
Pretty much. That's probably why it sort of just came out
The
like
toss
it came
result,
out, because you can just about pick it, can't you?
Yeah. Maybe they're so bored of, or they're so confused anyway, they're just picking the same impact subs, bat first, bat seconds. Doesn't matter, but we can't think so much.
Anyways,
we have to hire a new man for this. All right. Let's get back to the Mark Wood chat. He is back playing against a former franchise of his. CSK had introduced Mark Wood to us in the IPL, and we knew he was going to have some impact, but fortunately a player with the injuries that he has, you've got to hedge your bets with him, and now you've got him firing in full flow. As we just have a look at how he's bowled in 2022, 7 wickets in the power play, 9 wickets in the middle, and 8 at the death, at an economy that never goes beyond 7.6. Not bad, Tom.
That's sensational.
Yeah,
Isn't it sensational? That
incredible.
really surprises me
Yeah.
when I saw those figures earlier. I'd imagine no one's got figures like that over the last couple of years.
I guess it's a small sample size given his track record.
Yeah, it is, but still, it's a pretty good sample. And what he gives you, which is so valuable, is wickets.
Oh, yes.
You know, in T20 cricket, you know, I'd much rather have wickets than worried about someone's economy. If you're giving me wickets, I'll have you all day long, because that's how you can change the course of a game. If you're not taking wickets, you're losing the game every time.
You had a good look at that Lucknow surface.
Yes.
You were at that game, Deep.
Yeah.
We felt like it wasn't necessarily the easiest surface, though eventually Kyle Mayers started, batting the way he did. Was that sort of more supportive for Mark Wood, or will he struggle more at the Chepauk? I mean, struggle's a hard word. Or will he, bowler like him, just not care what the pitch is?
I don't think he would care as much, because he knows his strength is his space. That's as simple as that. So he's not going to compromise with that any which way. And in fact, last time around, I was having a chat after that game, and he reminded me his figures were, when he played for CSK, only one game, I think it was 51 for nothing in his 4.
Brilliant. Yeah, now I remember that. Yeah. I was trying to think if he played more. But
He just played one game for CSK, and he reminded he's like much better second game in the IPL. But yeah, I mean, he's going to be more of the same thing, wicket to wicket, quick and fast. And what was really good to see in the last spell or last game of his was he wasn't afraid of bowling bounces. That's personally, I believe that's one delivery that not too many bowlers, quicker bowlers, go to, and maybe they should. But he bowled quite a few. I mean, a few of them, and they were like obviously really good bowls.
Yeah, even really fast bowlers or really quick bowlers can go for plenty. We hear that often when we talk about Umran or even Bumrah, Archer at the Chinnaswamy that day. I know it's a small sample size, but given those economies, is there something about Wood that makes him even harder to get away than, say, all the other premium fast bowlers who've got that pace?
Well, that economy surprises me.
Yeah.
So
Let's hope it's right.
I'm not really prepared with, to give you some real detailed insight, because well, let me put it this way. In the first game, what really impressed me was, I know he's got pace. That's a given. But what really impressed me with his bowling was his line. He bowled gun barrel straight. So it was either hitting the stumps or hitting over the top of the stumps, or hitting someone in the head. So the line was perfect. So the issue with pace bowling is if you don't have that control of line, you then become expensive, because the deflections past third man just fly. So his line was immaculate. So if he maintains that tonight, he's going to be a major threat. And the other interesting matchups tonight is he's bowling to his Test captain.
Oh, yes.
He's bowling to a
And
couple
his
of
county
English.
captain as well.
And he's also bowling to his county captain. Well, he's the same. And also bowling to Moeen Ali. And I know that unit is a very tight unit, so it's going to be. I'd be so surprised if both of them don't cop one upstairs first ball. So surprised.
I mean, Moeen Ali's got a history with it, but he's got in much better.
Absolutely. But I just think, just as a bit of a message, that
how's it going?
Good afternoon or good evening.
Why not? Why not? This could be Mark Wood continuing to entertain us, or it could be None for 51 loading part 2. So we could go both ways. Don't make a good point though. Maybe we should break down. This is T20s, not T20Is. Should break down, catalogue which games these are, the oppositions. Maybe that will tell us the story on Mark Wood's numbers. He's also going to be bowling to Stokes and Moeen, as Deep and Tom have mentioned, and a number of other left-handers. Can CSK perhaps approach this innings differently? They did sort of lose momentum once Stokes and Moeen Ali fell back-to-back in that opening game against Gujarat. We got Matt Roller. It's all about the English today. We got Wood, we got Stokes, we got Moeen, we got Matt Roller as well. Let's see what he's got for us with regards to CSK and their left-handers.
Chennai Super Kings went into the opening game of IPL 2023 with 3 left-handed batters in the top 4. They had Devon Conway opening the batting with Ruturaj Gaikwad. They had Moeen Ali coming in at number 3 and Ben Stokes at number 4. So 3 overseas players in the top 4, all of them left-handed batters. The question is that the most effective way to utilise those 3 players? Conway, in his short IPL career so far, has done a lot better against spin than pace, but is opening the batting. Moeen scores slightly quicker against spin than against pace and is coming in at number 3, whereas Stokes, who scores pretty similarly against pace and spin, has been coming in at number 4, which exposes him to the spinners, a role that could be better suited to Conway or to Moeen Ali. Ahead of tonight's game against Lucknow Super Giants, one of the challenges for those left-handers will be that Lucknow have 2 off-spinners that they might use at some point tonight, K. Gautam and Deepak Hooda. With that in mind, should Chennai consider splitting up those left-handers, or should they rejig the order that they come in?
Okay, good couple of questions, but their left-handedness goes well beyond the top 4. They've then got Jadeja, Dubey, Santner, so they've got looks like 6 in the top 8 now. Any merit in what Matt says in terms of how they can send those lefties out, Tom?
Yeah, there's a lot of merit in what he says, but I wouldn't be moving Conway. I'd be leaving him at the top of the order. But what I would be doing is I'd have Raidu ready to go. So depending if the right-hander's lost at the top of the order, I'd have Raidu going in, trying to keep that left-right combination going all the way through. So I just have a little bit of flexibility there, and he's your only one that can create that flexibility for you. But again, you know, got all due respect to K. Gautam and Deepak Hooda, you know, it's not Matai Murali-Dhuran. You know, that they're steady spinners without being world-class spinners. So I'm sure the likes of Stokes and Moeen will be thinking, you know, leave it to me.
Yeah.
You know. The other important thing, if it turns out to be a 150 kind of a pitch, then you can't let Ben Stokes and Moeen Ali play the 7 to 14 overs. Either they've got to be in the top 7-8 overs, make them play there, or then the last 4-5 over. Because, like I said, if it's a 170 odd pitch, then it's a different thing. But if it's one of those low-scoring Chepauk pitches, then you'd rather have someone else playing those middle overs.
We could likely see K. Gautam take the new ball, as we tend to see a lot of players. In which case, Conway at the top with that strike rate against spin works just fine. So I guess he would fancy that, I think.
He would welcome it. Yeah, he'd welcome it because he plays both sides. He plays the reverse sweep, plays the conventional sweep. So he'd welcome that, I would have thought.
Right. What was good in a way for Lucknow was that pretty much everyone contributed in that game except for KL Rahul with bat. And that's a good thing because sometimes we center the discussion in KL Rahul's IPL teams about how he carries pretty much all the weight or does all the heavy lifting. KL Rahul also has one more thing going for him. He's a phenomenal IPL player, but his record against Chennai is even more impressive. An average of over 60, strike rate of over 150. For a man whose strike rate triggers enormous debate, those numbers are pretty self-explanatory. I don't know how many batters have great records against Chennai. But I guess Rahul just...
Yeah, but we're looking at 7 innings, so the sample size and also the fact that 7 innings, last 2 years we haven't played in Chepauk, so most of them would be on good surfaces.
Sure.
No, as in...
Better surfaces. Mumbai was certainly
let's
better
say
than
170, 180
Sure.
surfaces rather than 150 surfaces. So, yeah, I mean, you've got to dig deeper, I guess.
Yeah.
But anyways, having said that, sorry, I mean,
please.
he's a phenomenal player. There's no two ways about it. And the last game as well, it was good to see him taking a few chances initially. The whole reason or the whole debate last couple of years has been he hasn't been taking those chances. He's been playing very safe, at least the first 5-6 overs. So even though he did not get too many last game, at least he was happy or he was keen to take chances and play his shots.
You think it's almost a good thing that in the last game he didn't get runs and he saw everyone else put their hand up, get to a big score and they won easy. It's almost reassuring for a captain like him, even though it's a different franchise. These are more his Punjab Kings problems.
Yeah, look, I think any captain welcomes everyone making contributions. So it's not about him. He'd be more concerned about, you know, people stepping up at different times. He'll have his moment because, as Deep says, he's a quality player. And I find it interesting, the debate that constantly sort of brews on around KL Rahul and his strike rate. You know, I think there's an unfair focus on that to a certain extent, because there's certain circumstances that has dictated that strike rate, and we know that he's got different gears, and we all, I suppose, focus on the lower strike rate moments because we know what he's capable of doing. Again, sort of recognising that, you know, at times that players need to shift through different gears. We see Virat Kohli do the same thing, and you know, we don't have the same conversations around that.
Oh, I promise you, we do. Yeah, yeah. I don't know where else you've been doing your work, but yeah, we do. Yeah. Kidding. Anyway, now I'd love to see one of those KL Rahul innings today as well, right? Because we want to see him get going. He's always among the top run getters. Should give us plenty to talk about at halftime. Now let's get a first innings prediction. Admittedly, we haven't seen the surface at the Chepauk, so this is going to be tricky for Deep and Tom. But Tom has been pretty good with this, so I'll give you.
Do I have to go first this time? I've been first every time. I think Deep should go first.
Every time you're alone, you go first.
Yeah.
Oh, that was awful. Of all the great jokes I've got in my 10 years of
It's
covering
hard
the
to get a
IPL.
word in though.
Yeah. Okay, so let me go first then today. I'd say 164.
Tom,
151.
you want mine?
Yes,
Go on.
please.
175.
Wow.
And CSK to win. I backed them to win this season, so they're going to win. 175.
To win this season.
Win it. They're winning the IPL.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, that's brave.
Yeah. Flem still watches everything. He just
Okay.
sends me a note every time. So.
Yeah.
Thank you, Deep. Thank you, Tom. Join us at the end of that 175 innings from CSK on ESPN Cricket for T20 time. Or do download our app, which will confirm as they get to the score that one of us have predicted. And it'll get there fastest. So you can get the latest updates from the IPL and plenty more. So get to the Play Store and the App Store and get the ESPN Cricket Info app. We'll see you at the end of the Chennai innings.